Here we go. Greetings and welcome. We are in Junior English, and our objective now for the hour is to bring some kind of final comments, review comments to Arthur Miller's classic Crucible. I think yesterday we kind of introduced much of where we'll go today as we begin to think about this text from its multiple perspectives, and that's kind of where I want to begin. Let's look at this text from multiple perspectives. There's any number of ways we can do that. One way to do that is to talk about this play as being an analysis of certain kind of dynamic political themes. So let's start there. Politics of or relating to the rules of group. That is to say, we can look at the play from its sociological perspective, and I think we probably should. We can look at great sociologists like Max Weber. When we say Weber, by the way, we spell it as W-E-B-E-R. We would want to, in our Americanized English, to pronounce it as Weber, but we will pronounce, of course, the German declination as Weber. And Weber had a lot to say about the importance of groups and the way groups are kind of led by these really powerful, he coined the phrase, charismatic kinds of individuals, leaders. The dynamism that we will see early on in the town of Salem as represented in the play Crucible in regards to the ways so easily the group gets led. So let's begin first of all by kind of asking some of these questions, and then we will move into the historically significant moments when Miller is making observation, if not commentary, on what Joseph McCarthy and his gang are doing at the same time in regards to the Red Scare. Question. In the play, why do so many people so quickly, and dare we say it, so easily, get caught up in the mass hysteria? Jot down a note or two as to why. How can you explain this fact? What is it that leads to such dynamic certainty about the events as they transpire? And can you give an epistemological understanding, epistis of or relating to knowledge, and views of knowledge? So let's do a little mini tutorial on epistemology, shall we? Because this is a model we'll come back to again and again. It begs a simple question: how do you know what you know? Epistemology of or related to knowledge, the theories on knowledge. There's kind of a continuum here that's in play, where on one end of the continuum we have what we call the absolute view, the absolutist view. This view runs something like this: I know the truth. I am absolutely certain of the truth. I have no question about the truth. What I know is absolutely certain. Absolute is the key word. Of course, there's a problem with this view of truth, right? It leads people to end up being soap on a rope, toast on a post, right? Flying airplanes into buildings, shooting people through a chest, right? That's the problem with this absolutist view. When you hold an absolutely certain view epistemologically, you can have a tendency to behave in ways that are going to be somewhat antisocial, but it will be accepted. Redemptive violence comes to mind, and of course, manifest destiny comes to mind. Which has led any number of people to say, because I can't believe in an absolutist view, I'm going to go all the way to the other end in what we call the view of what? The relativist view. What's the relativist view? Well, the relativist view says all knowledge is relative. In a word, there are no absolutes. What's true for you is true for you. What's true for me is true for me. Everything is relative. There are no truths, and there certainly are no absolute truths. That's the relativist position. But the only problem with the relativist position is that very quickly an individual is stuck in what we call the performative contradiction. The performative contradiction. What does that mean? Well, think of it for a moment, and it'll make some sense to you. To say there are no absolutes is to posit an absolute. Right? And in the moment that you say there are no absolutes, you have enjoined a confusion of language, that is to say, a contradiction of sorts. And to that degree, to say absolutely there are no absolutes defeats the relativist position. Right? I mean, to say there are no absolutes, everything is relative, is to say I absolutely know that there's one thing that's, oh crap. Well, dang it, now I'm kind of saying there's an absolute, and that is there are no absolutes. Well, if there's one absolute, can there be two absolutes? See how that works? And to that degree, the relative position epistemologically kind of falls on its face, which then begs the obvious question. Well, what's left then, epistemologically speaking, in terms of what we know? If the relativist position is no good, I guess I basically just have to jump into that camp and become an absolutist. And it's called, I guess I just pick what I consider to be absolute truth, and I kind of just follow my way. There is a third option. It is, of course, an option that we will debate often in here, and it sits somewhere in the middle. And this is the fallibilist position. Right? The fallibilist position over relating to fallibility. The potentiality of error. The fallibilist position runs something like this. It says, look, I think I'm right, but I could be wrong. So I'm going to behave in such a way that I actually do work off of certain kinds of assumed principles. And about those principles, I in fact will say, I believe them to be true. But about the derivation of those principles, where they come from, how I hold them, how I practice them, I am constantly willing to say, I could be wrong. So I will constantly look for information evidence that could, in fact, disprove my view. Okay? In other words, I keep an open mind. Okay? Now I can re-ask the question. See, and I can ask it from its epistemological instantiation. In the play Crucible, what kind of epistemological model are we playing with? Is it an absolutist position? Is it a relativist position? Or is it a fallibilist position? And that's self-evident, right? In other words, I could now ask the question a different way. How do you account for the fact that the group is so certain of the epistemological position that they hold in regards to witchcraft, in regards to satanic power, in regards to what's going on? How do you account for that? Good. One answer is, look, this is theology. These people have been raised all their lives with a certain theological perspective that is an absolutist perspective. We will tell you what the Bible means, and you must believe it absolutely. 3a. What text can you draw on already that we've studied in this class that helps instantiate that view? Which text have we already studied that helps us to kind of understand? It would make sense. This is, if you're raised with this text, you would clearly have the absolutist epistemological view. Obviously, John Edwards, sinners in the hands of an angry God. Good. So the minute we look at a text like sinners in the hands of an angry God, we go, oh, well, yeah, okay. I mean, if that's their view, theologically speaking, notice Edwards doesn't say, you know, this thing about God and hell and all, I could be wrong about that. I'm going to have to do a little more study and get back with you. No. Notice his certainty is rooted in a theological absolute certainty. Right? There is no doubt. And in fact, to instill any kind of doubt is perceived as, in itself, satanic. What is it Satan does? He instills doubt. How does he do it? By asking questions. Go back to the Matthew 3 account, for those of you that know your Gospels, and the famous story of the temptations of Christ. And notice that the satanic figure in that story likes to ask questions. Raise doubt, you see. Now, of course, this notion of asking questions goes way back as a very dangerous kind of activity. Who's the most famous teacher who asks questions and ends up getting jacked for it? Of course, Socrates comes to mind. 399 BCE. He will ask questions which leads to doubt, And the community will in turn say, thank you very much, you just got jacked, right? And in a famous dialogue, Plato will tell us, in fact, called Apology, how Socrates is brought up on Trump charges, and there it is. So one answer to the question, how do you account for the fact that this kind of group psychic thing going on is, well, epistemologically, they kind of are stuck in a nasty little rat cage, where if you begin from certain premises, you inevitably kind of come back to those. Somebody has broken God's law and therefore deserves punishment, and that punishment should be then death. And in the project of killing, you're doing two things. You're not only saving the individual, but you're saving the community. Saving the individual, I kind of get, I got that one, but what about the community? How are you saving the community by executing these people? They're bad examples to the rest of us, which is why it's not enough that John Proctor is going to sign that document. That document must be put where? On the church door. Why? Why? Why hammer up his confession? He asked this question. Why? You've got my confession. Dude, you're watching me do it. Why must it be hammered up on the door? And what is the actual language for the what? Do you remember? Have you gotten this far in the play? What is it that he says? For the good of the town. It's a propedeutic. It's instructional. Right? Interestingly, John Proctor's response is, I can't do this though. How will I raise my sons? What does he mean by that? I don't understand. How will I raise my sons means what? Yeah, I'm a ruined man if I sign this. I say I'm colleagued with the devil. How am I going to raise my boys if I do that? How else do you account for this epistemological certainty which leads to all kinds of people's dying? Theological answer we've given. Are there any other answers that come to mind?
Fear.
In what regards fear? And how does fear work within a group? Let's analyze it for a moment. Because it seems like when we're watching this on stage, we can learn a lot about Worland High School. And we can learn a lot about subpopulations within Worland High School. I've had juniors that say, now that is an interesting observation. I'll ask it a different way. What do you learn from the play Crucible that helps you understand teachers in this building as a group? You learned something about teachers from this play. You learned something about teachers as a group at Worland High School from this play. Mr. McAfee, what is it that you wish to say?
On occasion, teachers will encourage you to ask questions and then dismiss your questions if they do not follow a certain,
Mr. McAfee, you and I will meet after class, and I will be writing you a detention. See how that works? Now, of course, my saying that to him, right, immediately tells Mr. Mignot, I was going to say, now I'm not. Are you saying teachers do this intentionally, Mr. McAfee, or unintentionally? You're saying teachers are hardwired to do this.
I think everybody's hardwired to do things.
It's like a protective mechanism of sorts?
They have nothing else to compare what they believe to. So.
Why? For teachers, it's all about what? What's the P word?
Paycheck.
It's all about what? Well, yeah, paycheck. Yeah. Of course. We'll get to Marx later in economy, but what is it about? What's the P word?
Power.
It's all about power. It's all about power. In other words, teachers have to be the ones in control, in charge, right? And if you're in charge or you're in control, there's a certain understanding of how you must maintain that, right? One easy way to do that is the manipulation of fear. So you can call out a student, make the student feel dumb, make the student feel insignificant, make the student feel wrong. And in the process of doing that, you can send a message to the rest of the group. I want no trouble out of you. Of course, what happens if you do have a troublemaker? I try not to look to that side of the room, but my eyes just have a tendency to go there. Sorry about that. What do you do?
Yes.
What do you do if you have a quote-unquote troublemaker? What's the way to control a troublemaker?
Put them in the front of the class.
You can obviously call them out. Here, thanks a lot. You can call them out in some way. You can pinpoint them. Wait a minute, some of you are saying, dude, this is this play. I mean, this is This is 101 how to do this, right? If you really want to control people, put them out in the spotlight. If they don't like that, they're embarrassed by that, then you've controlled them. And by extension, the rest of the group. Of course, ultimately, if they like it, right, then you've got to find another way to manipulate. Which begs a really intriguing question. Is power and dynamic power within Worland High School's classrooms all about manipulation? And does that trouble you if you so easily say, yeah? Because here pretty quickly, roles reverse in your life, and you're no longer the student. You become the teacher. Whether you like it or not, you become the adult figure. That's happening soon. Ms. Myers.
I'd also like to make the observation that some teachers, although they know that their student is misbehaving, they still believe what they say, such as Abigail. Meaning
they participate in the game.
Yeah.
To what degree, I'll use a little bit of Wittgenstein here. He talked about games that humans play, language games and other kind of games. To what degree, I mean, it's like kind of sick to call it a game that's being played in Crucible, but in some way, if I can do it like this, there is a game that's being played in Crucible, isn't there? And everyone's kind of playing a part in that game. What is the game in Crucible? Pointing fingers, accusations. That's part of the game. What else is part of the game?
He said, she said.
That whole thing, you were slightly mentioned. Your name came up. Right?
Oh, yeah, it's like telephone.
Like,
Telephone.
yeah, you can play games with people by virtue of just kind of assuming things. Right? You want to really jack somebody, say, oh, I heard what happened with you over the weekend. Whoa, what did you hear? I'm not at liberty to say. Funny how the person who's heard that will then spend the rest of her day going, oh, what did they say? Amazing how that works. Which seems to suggest that there is a bringing together of sociology and psychology. So let's go there now. Instead of talking about the group, let's talk about the individuals. Why does Abigail do what Abigail does? Is it as something as simple as she slept with a man, she enjoyed it, that man's wife threw her out of the house, she's mad at that woman, she wants to be back with that man? Does Abigail Williams' primary motivation for you simply love? She loves John Proctor. The play begins by her wanting John Proctor to love her. Go back and look at the language. That's what she asked Tituba to do. Make John Proctor love me.
Kill his wife.
Let's kill his wife. That'll be a simple solution. In the history of the world, this is not a new idea. A jealous woman doesn't like the wife. Let's get rid of the wife. Simple. We'll kill her. Happens all the time in literature. We're familiar with it in the history of the world. Do you see Abigail as a lover? See, some of us will go, I've never thought about that. I don't see her as the lover. I see her as something else. But is she just the jilted lover? And to that degree, in the end, is it kind of John Proctor who's guilty, or John Proctor's wife who's guilty, for treating badly Abigail? In other words, this is an interesting question. Do you blame Abigail if she was poorly treated? Kennedy says, I can kind of see that now. Yeah.
You can't hold a grudge. Like, if she threw her out of the house, there's no reason to kill somebody.
Wait a minute, what about the sleeping part? We don't want to forget that, especially in this culture.
He's a married man.
That's a big dog deal too. But are you suggesting, Myers, that married men don't sleep with single girls? In the history of the world, that's pretty much one of the early acts. Would you agree with me? Kind of is a history lesson right there. Happens all the time.
Maybe we should put a red A on Abigail's chest.
So she slept with John Proctor. John Proctor allows for her to be fired. There are rumors about her in the village. She's just in love with John Proctor. In the early back and forth between them, the chemistry is intentionally designed to be a romantic one. She even says, I can tell that when you come around me, you still are kind of, she uses an interesting phrase, like a stallion. Sweats.
Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of obvious, right, there's obviously all kinds of intended sexual language going on here, and she says it. He doesn't deny it. He only says, it's over between us. To which she says, but it's not over. You still love me, and I know you do. He says, I can't love you. Notice, he doesn't say, I don't love you. He says, I can't love you. Is Abigail a lover? Is she behaving out of love? And does that make it more difficult or less difficult for you in this play? All right, let's go to John Proctor. Sheesh, this is a tough one. Proctor is in many ways the one responsible. He did, after all, sleep with the young girl. He did, after all, let his wife get rid of her. He did, after all, watch as all of this unfolds. Proctor knows what's going on. He knows Abigail has made all this up. She has confessed it. He won't go early on and say, I know, this is what's up. 2 questions, yay 3. First question, why doesn't he just early on go and take care of it? Question 2, why at the pivotal moment of the play does he finally go ahead and say, this is what's going on, and confesses lechery, that is to say, sleeping with a woman who's not your wife? Number 3, after he does it, when he finally is given an opportunity to save himself, he doesn't take it. Dude, all he has to do is sign some stupid piece of paper. Everybody knows it's a lie. Sign the paper, let him stick it up on the door. It's done. He's got children he's got to think of. He's got a wife he's got to think of. How are these people going to take care of themselves after he's dead? That is a tough question, by the way. Does John Proctor completely renounce all responsibility in the final act? Is it the act of a hero to tear it up? Or is it the act of a coward? Why does he tear up the paper? Why doesn't he just sign it? Dude, it's just a lie. Everybody's been lying. By the way, he does give an answer. Why does he say he cannot let them nail that piece of paper up? Right. It's my name, he says, right? It's a powerful moment in the film, right? It's my name. It's a provocative moment. It's my name. It's all I've got. How will I live if I don't have my name?
Wait, isn't that the same reason why Abigail's...
Right. Good point. All of the motivations here, remember, we're working on the individual psychological. All of the motivations seem to be driven by this thing of reputation. Abigail Williams doesn't want to be known as the girl who sleeps around. John Proctor's wife doesn't want to be known as the woman who had a husband who slept around. John Proctor obviously can't be the guy who slept around. We got a preacher who can't be known to have relatives running around in the woods dancing naked because she slept around. See how it's all got to have a chicken involved. Got to have a chicken involved, right? And a pot in the woods. What's up with John Proctor? Let's take them in reverse order. John Proctor does not let his name be written on the paper and his paper signed and then put on the church door. He tears it up, and in the process, he knows he's going to die. Why? And do you agree or disagree with this? Is he heroic? Reed, is he a hero? He tears up the paper. It must make him a hero, right? He leaves his wife. He leaves his children to be raised and tended by somebody else. Should he have lied? What does the play say? Let's begin with the text itself. What does his wife say? He has his honor now. She sees what he does as heroic. He lost his honor when he slept with the girl. He gains his honor back by going to his death instead of giving some kind of false confession. His wife sees this as honorable. He saved the family name.
I think the town people would have seen him as a coward if he would have signed it and been saved, but still, but like Rebecca Nurse and Martha Corey gave that up and they died. He
All
would be
the other
looking
ones who have
at-
already died make it very problematic for John Proctor. If he goes ahead and quote-unquote sells out to save his quote-unquote hide, he's got to live in a community where people look at him and go, yeah, I think I understand intellectually what you did for your wife, for your kids, I get it, but, I mean, coward.
Why
Is
did
it?
Mr. Hale want to save him so much?
Because he felt responsible.
Why does he feel responsible?
Yeah, but
Because
other people
initially-
died as
Because
well.
he is responsible. Why is he responsible?
Initially, he was like, "Oh yeah, all this stuff is real."
He started all of this, didn't he? Remember early on, he's got the special books. He knows all about it. Notice the level of, wait a minute, epistemologically, that's a fascinating character to study. He starts out certain. He's absolutely certain. He's got books. They are heavy books, full of weighty information. Right? But by the end of the play, man, he does not even know what he knows anymore. Right? He has looked into the cauldron of absolute certainty, and he has seen the town of Salem. He says it. There's private vengeance at play here going on. Something's up, and it ain't good. It ain't good. How many of you see John Proctor as a hero, then? You're going to call him a hero? Is he heroic? He goes to the gallows. He pays the ultimate sacrifice, but is he heroic?
It'd be more heroic if he were to stay in the town and take.
He'd be more of a hero to lie and say, yeah, I was a witch. Let his name be ruined so he could save his hide.
And also he could save his
Takes
family.
more guts. It takes more guts to do that. Or to say, nah, screw you guys. I ain't doing this project anymore. I don't care if you hang me.
I think it takes more guts to stand up for what he knows is true. Like he
Which is what?
he knows he didn't. Like,
It takes more
wasn't
guts to
obeying.
abandon your children.
Well,
It takes more guts to abandon your wife. This is a momentary act, and then he's dead. His wife and children get to live the rest of their life without their daddy. You're saying that's more heroic?
I am, but I'm not putting it like that.
Well, and like he says that he doesn't know how he's going to raise his kids, and if the town looks at you that way, how are they going to look at your kids too?
Either way, you're saying his kids are jacked either way.
Pretty much.
The town pretty much knew that they weren't committing witches. Like most of them knew.
So in other words, there's this whole thing of what the town really knows. What the town really knows is this is a complete fabrication. This is a complete fiasco. But nobody's going to say anything because everybody's afraid they're going to be the next one bullied. So, why can't John Proctor be the one that stops the bullying then? Why can't John Proctor be the one that says, two things. One, I'm going to go ahead and sign this document and let you play your little game. Two, once it's done and you're out of here. We're going to take care of some people that started all this project, starting with, we're going to deal with some religious people that have allowed this all to go on. Why can't John Proctor lead the charge towards sanity?
Because he's not innocent.
Well, he's not innocent, but he's the only one that's been honest, aside from Giles Fuller.
A fine point. You don't have very much honesty in play here. So, Hodges, is he a hero or is he not? You see him as a coward? He walks up on the stage, the scaffolding, and he lets them hang him. That has to be I mean, you can't be much of a coward if you do that, can you?
It's because he's scared of what people think of him. Like, and he hides behind God, saying that, oh, I love God, I can't be with the devil or whatever. But really, he's just scared of what people think.
It's all about his reputation. He says as much. Do you think times have changed in America? Does a reputation matter that much? He says, I cannot live with the reputation other than the one I choose. And therefore, I will go to the scaffold. Does a reputation matter that much? Does it matter that much?
Yes.
Do Worland High School students care that much about their rep?
Not now. When they try to get a job, yeah.
In other words, we care about our rep when we need to care about our rep. What about family reputations? Does family reputations matter? For him, it's about his family and the family reputation. Do you think it still matters? Family. What about religious reputation? Whether you're affiliated with a certain religious group or not.
Hardly ever
Does that matter?
Are we talking about high school?
We're talking about Worland High School. Does it matter anymore? What about racial reputation? Certain skin color means certain kind of rep. Does that matter anymore? Do people make assumptions on that count?
Depends
What
on
about gender? You're a guy, you're a girl. Do people make assumptions in terms of male, female?
Yeah.
Or does reputation not matter as much anymore?
I think it's
Finally, last question for your notes. Miller decides to call the play Crucible. Why? What does that even mean? Now, we know what a crucifix is, but what is a crucible? Does anybody look this one up to see? Anybody know what this means? What is a crucible? Maybe that's an interesting question. How about that one? Let's put that one on the test. Two-part question. One, what is a crucible? Two, why would Miller call this play Crucible? He's playing games with us to the very end. Well, there you go. An introduction and a review of Miller's play Crucible.